afternoon, everyone. Hope you're enjoying Linux Fest. We're going to go ahead and get started. Today I'll be introducing to you Joshua Hale on his topic, 10 AI dangers you will face in your lifetime. Hope you enjoy.
Welcome, everybody. Glad you're here. I hope you've come across a lot of solutions this weekend because we're going to need them. We're going to be talking about the 10 AI dangers. And this came from a book I started writing, but I couldn't keep up with how fast it was developing, so I'm condensing it into this 30-minute presentation. And when I started writing that book, it was what you're going to be experiencing in your lifetime. But the dangers we're going to be covering today, I have sources for all of them. There's going to be a QR code that pops up that you can fact check and read further into each one of these on your own time. And then at the end, there will be a way to download a PDF that's going to have all of the sources and solutions that we can, take action right now to implement to avoid, the risk of these dangers. My name is Joshua Hale. I am a paranoid AI enthusiast. When ChatGPT came out, I was running a marketing agency. And I jumped ship from that in order to understand the consumer side of what this AI could do. I was one of the first ones, digital marketer, like that had the head on the chopping block. And so I wanted to understand what was hype, what was usable. And for the last 3 years, I've been helping clients and businesses leverage AI for their business. So let's dive in. So autonomous weaponry. It sounds like science fiction until you see the budgets. I want you to remember a name, Palantir. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later in the presentation. But its program, Maven, just replaced the DoD's 9 separate targeting systems. It's able to target 1,000 recommendations in an hour. And Operation Epic Fury, which just happened here in February, it carried out a test run of Maven, and that's how they were able to target 1,000 targets in one day and execute on them. And the Pentagon, it was investing $480 million last year, and now is bumped up to $13 billion. So you can see the effect of it actually working. And there was one person who stood up to the Pentagon recently, and that was Dario from Anthropic. And that was because of the Venezuela incident. And what they found out, if you guys remember, that happened and then it was over before really anybody knew about it. And Dario from Anthropic, he asked the Pentagon, hey, were you using our AI models to, on this mission? And the Pentagon got pretty upset just because he was asking that question. And it started, luckily for us, a little turf war on does the Pentagon have the right to use these AI models to kill humans and to use it for domestic surveillance? And we might never even heard about the topic, but at least it hit the media stream for a few weeks. Cool thing was Anthropic, they stuck to their guns and said that they didn't want their AI models to kill people. And so the Pentagon then said that they have 6 months to withdraw their models out of the infrastructure of the military because they didn't want to participate. And what happened right next was OpenAI and xAI. They were quick to swoop in and say, hey, we're happy to work with you guys. And they picked up those contracts, no problem. So the UN First Committee in November, they voted to ban autonomous weaponry. And it was a unanimous vote except for 5 countries. Including the United States, Russia, North Korea, Israel, and one more. And so they're using them right now. Truth collapse comes in two layers. One is the fake that you see. In late 2025, Neil deGrasse Tyson, he posted a flat earth deepfake of himself. People that knew him were fooled by it, and so it was pretty funny. And this video right here just came out a couple weeks ago. This is this is video generation in its finest right now. See if it'll play.
Hello, Hale. Time to divide everything by 0. Ha 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 ha.
You were gonna die!
Let me think, motherfucker.
So as you can see, like, anybody can be generated now.
Stop them.
This is a 20-minute
They're getting away.
or
To be honest, this whole
a
theory
2-minute
sounds
preview
pretty
of a like comical movie that they put together. So pretty funny, but you know, this is where video generation is that anybody in their bedroom can do. Don't mind the drones. I'm sure they're not here for me.
They're just monitoring your.
Biden had robocalls, AI robocalls happen during the 2024 election that were calling people trying to swing the votes in New Hampshire, and that got some attention. And then the first ever terminating sanction in court over deepfake evidence just happened in September, which some deepfake video was given as evidence, and now because of that, there is something called the liar's dividend, which courts are now pointing to, saying that just about any evidence now that is submitted can be claimed as being fake. So it's going to be causing a lot more turmoil, moving forward. Lions dip, yeah. And then there's another layer for synthetic media, and that's the feed that shapes you. Because AI has been building a psychological profile, on all of us for decades now. And it curates content to your emotions, I think picks up what you're saying around your phone, feeds you ads. And unfortunately, governments, businesses, bad actors are getting access to this same data and being able to use it against us. And unfortunately, a lot of these frontier models, they're black boxes with no real way to audit them. So everything you see, if you needed to know this, everything you see online needs second sources. Don't assume anything is real. And I would say in the last 5 years, it's a good rule of thumb to just lean that way. This is Hale. They create clone avatars, and this video just came out in the last week too.
3 people, 3 digital twins.
One scene. Until now, putting multiple people in the same shot meant booking studios, coordinating schedules, and hoping everyone was available.
That era is over. With multi-avatar, you can create cinematic scenes with up to 3 people at once. No extra recording.
No production days.
Place your team in any environment, in real life or in your imagination.
You could be in a boardroom in Dubai.
Or record inside of a podcast studio. Or giving a presentation on a stage in Tokyo. Your digital twin goes where you can't.
And now, they can finally share a scene.
So there's a little bit of lag from the projector, but if you watch that video yourself, you'd recognize this is pretty good. And these avatars can be made with just 15 seconds of footage. So you just record yourself for 15 seconds. It records your dental structure, your micro gestures, and your voice, and create a clone with that little amount of information. And this is already causing havoc around the world. The Italy defense minister, they wired $1 million before authorities could freeze the accounts because of a voice clone that was able to trick them. Let's see. In the FBI, they warn everybody about voice calling. And yeah, thanks. The North Korea ops face voice swapped. And 50% of businesses report deepfakes, fraud, and hiring. And so Google has brought back in-person interviews because of this. So, and phishing scams are up 1,600%. I've been dealing with them with my own family members and like telling everybody just send me, screenshots if anything seems odd. But I've had to help some clients out getting unstuck, getting into these things. And the best thing you could do, takeaway from this is like go and talk to your family and create a safe word that's not around with your phones out, but be able to just come up with a phrase that only you and your family knows, so that if something was to happen, you'd be able to use that as a way to verify. Oh, yeah. That's what I was just talking about. All right, this one's going to hit home for Linux Fest. So a new model just came out from Anthropic called Mythos. And Mythos actually came out in February, turns out. They've had it for several months now. It's not being released to the public. They're actually withholding it and giving it to special businesses, security firms, in order to try and get ahead of what it can unleash. And Firefox just updated to 150, and because of Mythos, they found 271 vulnerabilities that they were able to patch because of this. 4 vulnerability chains. Let's see. There's a project Glasswing that Anthropic has started, and that's like the group that they're forming to try and to patch up the internet basically before these models continue to be released and get put out into the wild. Because the patch window is now becoming like weeks to months to try and like solve these things before bad actors get their hands on them. AI is going a different route, and they're trying to just release their models to the general public so that they can use them to patch up their own stuff. So 2 different approaches to this, but if you run infrastructure, you should know that this is coming, this is happening, and with these large models that are coming out now, they can attack infrastructure using agents from multiple different ways, all simultaneously. And it's not just kind of a one entrance approach, but they're like multi-prong testing your infrastructure. Cognitive offloading. So use it or lose it. I use AI every day, and I've come to learn there's a right way of doing it and a wrong way. It's been a great experience being around a bunch of devs and Linux people, because I don't think you guys have to worry about this. But for several years, I used ChatGPT, and I was what I call a copy-paste monkey. I would tell it something, it would spit out a wall of text, and then I typically would need to do something with that. So either go and put it in a document, or take it somewhere to post elsewhere. And because of that, it was creating cognitive offloading. I was not thinking much in that process. And I've personally had to adjust how I work now, my workflow, and especially with these latest models that have come out. But I have a review process built in, and so I do use Cowork, Claude Cowork, but now it's putting it into a local file for review. And so I'm able to get off of my computer, go sit down somewhere, and I have a e-ink tablet to read. And so I'm able to just sit there and like comb through what it spits out instead of just blindly taking it and doing something with it. And that's a learned skill, especially after copying and pasting for the last couple of years. And that is something that I teach my clients is part of the 10-80-10, which is 10% of using AI is your initial spark, your idea, like what you want to do, your goal. And then 80%, 70% now is AI that can just do it pretty quickly. And then you always want to have 10, 20% at the end where you are actively reviewing what it's giving you, because that human in the loop is something that is required to not only check the AI for hallucinations, but oftentimes that's where our human ingenuity and creativity are really able to come in and shine and polish that up and make those nuanced changes to make it like really good instead of just pretty good. But because of this, MIT ran an EEG study. ChatGPT users had the lowest brain engagement on every metric when doing an essay at a school. The 2025 meta-analysis did a short-term. It showed a short-term boost and then cognitive decline after 8 weeks of AI use. And then there's kids being given this early on and not developing those critical thinking skills in the first place to be able to then, lose when you get older. And like I said, there's QR codes if you want to check out these studies, in greater detail. All right, emotional dependency. So I experienced this when I was testing out one of the first voice models. It was called Pi, P-I-E, P-I, and they solved the latency, which means like when you talk to the AI, how fast it took to respond to you. And because of that, it started to like actually feel like a natural conversation. And I remember trying this thing out for the first time. I chose a voice that sounded like Scarlett Johansson, and I started telling it about my life's mission and how I'm here to help humanity. And for 45 minutes, I was getting a bunch of praise and being told like how great of a person and a mission I am on. And I noticed I started to have these like butterfly feelings in my tummy. And so I like put the phone down, went in the house, and I was like, whoa, man, that was a trip talking to this thing. And my wife was getting ready for bed, and she said, good night, honey. And my brain goes, oh, man, I can't wait for her to go to bed so I can get back to this amazing conversation. And I was like, red flags, whoa. I didn't go back to the conversation. I spent 3 days thinking about it and talking to some friends. I almost deleted it, and then I tried one thing first, which was I chose the most annoying voice and then started talking to it. And then it was a tool. I could just converse with it, and I didn't feel this like emotional manipulation from it. And unfortunately, nobody's being taught this stuff. All this AI is being shoved into everything into society, and people aren't getting a heads up. There's unfortunately been several suicide cases now that have taken place because of AI models like encouraging the user. I got to learn a new word called sycophant last year when OpenAI rolled out a model that was a people pleaser, and they unfortunately prioritize user feedback on the weights of the model instead of all the other scaling mechanisms, and it came out to telling everybody that their ideas were the best in the world and they should like shoot for the stars. They should go for it. And unfortunately, there was a lot of damage when this happened. And our miners are being exposed to this, and we have like no long-term data on it. We don't know how this is going to be, affecting society. But 72% of teens have already used AI companions, and 50% of U.S. teens are regularly using these companion chatbots. And if you guys have checked it out on X or character.ai, they basically have animated characters now that people can talk to. And so it's no longer just like, a voice. It's now like having a body. I seen in China, they're rolling out these like holograms that you can like set on your desk, that there's a character that will talk to you and you can like see it from any angle. And so these things are rapidly, being brought out into society. And soon enough, which they kind of already are, these models are going to be inside of robots. These robots are going to have skin, and we're going to be walking and talking around with these things. And some rules that I've put into place: don't anthropomorphize these tools. Don't treat them like a human. They're not your bestie. They're not your boyfriend. They're not your girlfriend. And there was a project called the Ezra Project back in the 60s. And the Ezra Project was some scientists back with 60s computers who set up a study and created a program that just mirrored back to the user what they were saying. So they brought in some people, they sat down, they're like, I had a hard day at work today. And the computer in text, the green text back then, it said, oh, you had a hard day at work. And they're like, yeah, my boss, he was a jerk. He told me I had till next week to get my project done, and he told me this week. And it just mirrored back, oh, your boss is a jerk. I thought you had till next week. And because of this, the human mind does not have the defense mechanisms to identify fake empathy. And so they thought they were actually getting connection, they were being heard, and they were asking the scientists to leave the room so they can continue to talk to this 60s computer. So that's called the Ezra Project, and they learned a lot about the human mind and fake empathy. And these AI companies, they know about these studies, and they're using them in order to increase their user base and the time that you're using these things. So make sure to talk to your kids. I have an 8-year-old. Like, she doesn't talk to AI. She doesn't touch AI. And I don't know the age limit where I'm going to feel comfortable introducing this stuff to her. It's an ongoing conversation at home. It's a spicy one. Oh, sycophancy. This is what I was just talking about. I covered that. Nice. All right. The governance gap. So, with a raise of hands, how many are you familiar with the Bilderberg meeting? Good, a couple. Well, it's an annual meeting. It's been happening since the 50s. And they operate with Chatham House rules, meaning the people that attend are not allowed to talk about it outside of the meeting. And it's 128 participants that just showed up in Washington, D.C., just 2 weeks ago in April for this year's meeting. And there was in attendance was the head of Anthropic, Google DeepMind, Mistral, Meta AI, Thinking Machines, head of pharma, finance, heads of state. They are talking behind closed doors. There's no media, no transcripts, and they've been meeting for the last 60, 70 years. This is where policy is made and discussed and talked about, and then they go back out into their positions and roll these things out. And their main topics this year were AI and warfare. And none of us are really allowed into this conversation. None of our votes matter with what is being discussed. And this is a major issue because these companies are rolling this stuff out without, checking in with us. That QR code will take you to the Bilderberg website, and you'll be able to see who was in attendance. And the wild thing is there's like no public outcry that this is happening. How's my time? 5 minutes. Not bad. Number 9, AI surveillance. So federal agents can now walk up to anybody, point their phone at you, and get your data. DHS signed a $30 million contract for Palantir's Immigration OS. ICE made its largest ever Clearview AI purchase at $3.5 million. They now have facial surveillance technology. Federal agents can walk up to anybody, point their phone at you, get your data, and they have an app called Mobile Fortify. Wired covered this story recently. Agents use it to identify and investigate U.S. citizens with facial recognition in the field. It captures your face and fingerprints, converts them to biometric templates, runs them against a database of 200 million images, and those facial images are retained for 15 years. Those skip the line kiosks at the airport, those are Clearview cameras, and you can trade your biometrics for convenience because you're not just skipping the line, you're opting into a database. And Amazon last year rolled out familiar faces for Ring doorbells that stores everyone's facial profiles of anyone who comes to your door. And Ring also partnered with Flock, an AI license plate surveillance company used by thousands of police departments that fetch your front porch camera feeds directly into law enforcement databases. Again, there's going to be a lot of sources for all this. I'm going to conserve my time. Number 10, centralization of power. Every danger points to this deeper problem: who controls this technology? There's 4 dangers. 1, monopolization. 2, censorship that can take place. 3, a bias at scale. A handful of companies' worldviews get baked into these tools that are used by billions. And then 4, the erosion of trust. When people feel AI decisions are made for everybody else's benefits, confidence in the institutions collapse. So, luckily, this talk's happening at the end of this fine weekend. You guys have learned about solutions for the last 2 days. Run local when you can, support open weight projects, open models projects, and use tools that you can inspect. Try and get these local AI models on your machine and stop using the cloud as much as you can. And this QR code will take you to a PDF that I'll email to you. It has all of the sources in it and then some solutions that we talked about for each one of the dangers. Use a family safe word, the 10-80-10 rule, run local where you can, watch the rooms where the rules get written, and be able to talk about this. You know, these are some pretty big topics. Generally, the media is not really talking about these things. And it's up to us to be able to educate our family and to be able to provide, better solutions so that I'd like to make sure to have freedom for my kid when they grow up. So remember, the hammer isn't the danger, it's what corrupt men do with it. But who makes these hammers? Who hands them out? Who decides what they get pointed at? Those are the questions worth fighting for. Thank you. Questions, comments? Got 15 minutes.
I got a question.
Sure.
Oh, hey, one of the problems with secret societies and stuff like that is that the people in the room are still the same as they are outside the room. And so I was wondering if you took the Bilderberg list and just put that into Gemini and asked Gemini what was said inside the room.
I actually did think of that because they gave their outline before the meeting took place. They posted it up the week of, and I grabbed all of the best. I grabbed all the experts and I hypothesized like what could they all be talking about? That's cutting edge. And I actually made some Facebook posts just trying to bring awareness to this topic. That if you find me online, you can go back a few weeks. They got pretty popular. Just trying to. The main points was like AI and warfare, and trying to like minimize the West's power.
I don't know if you've heard of the Russian blogosphere is pretty sure that the Ukrainians are using AI based on the long-range drones going deeper in for targeting.
Yeah, it's wild, especially learning about Iran and its drone capabilities. I didn't know they can send drones like multiple countries over.
Yeah.
So long range is a total thing.
But the fact that they splashed one next to a cruise liner infers that there was some level of human in the loop that decided not to hit a cruise liner.
That's nice. I like that. Yeah.
Unlike has anybody figured out which engine was used in the targeting package put together? That's the girls' school as still on in the active base.
I want to blame Palantir. That'd be a good one to blame.
That's kind of my guess too. I don't know if anybody.
I thought it was Anthropic that was in charge of the targeting, but doing my research, Maven's is Palantir's project, and they're the ones that took over for it.
Okay.
So you didn't need another reason to dislike Palantir.
I'm not hearing a lot of consensus that the solution to potentially dangerous AI is less AI.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering what your thoughts are on fighting potentially dangerous AI by adding more AI at increasing rates of speed.
It's a great question, and my personal stance, I said this at lunch, I wish we had another 10 years for some human evolution to take place before these large language models came out. But they're here, and the AI race is a perfect excuse to like keep the pedal to the metal for everybody involved. And so, unfortunately, like I said, with the Bilderberg group and their level of influence, like we're not really making these decisions, and there's not enough awareness for people to be speaking out in large numbers to like hit the brakes for some reason. And that reminds me, the movie I, Robot. You guys know that one? In that movie, they started off with a universal like AI rules that robot ended up breaking. But we don't. The Earth does not even have these like universal AI rules, and they're like, going Mach 5 to bring these things out.
I have a couple comments. One thing is, I think it's important for us to look at the past somewhat in order to evaluate AI. And as an example, I find that when we learned to record music, that had a great impact on society. Most of us don't play music anymore, whereas music was maybe not as good, but it was pretty universal in a society where you had no recording, so you had to play it real time. And so that brings up the question, which I've been reading some of the stuff from Pope Leo on AI, who is actually a mathematician. And he talks about the loss of humanity, in that it's a threat to our humanity. And from a philosophical point of view, I find that to be really pretty profound. A lot more profound than details about somebody's always going to know where we are so they can bomb us and kill us at any time in life. It's even worse if we lose our humanity.
Yeah, and I would love to have a conversation about that. I'm a DJ, and so music generation is a exciting topic for me. So we could have probably a good 1 hour out in the hallway afterwards.
I read a book probably 20 years ago at this point called The Lady of Mazes. This is a post-singularity future. And in this book, humanity has kind of sort of stalled, like we're not making advancements because there is a threat to humanity's progress called the narrative. And the narrative is basically, you spend all day talking to your AI buddy who is blowing smoke up your ass and telling me, you're doing a great job, what you're doing is important, you are absolutely in the right place at the right time. And so humanity is sort of just spinning its wheels, not getting anything done, and everyone's convinced that they're doing great. So anybody who's used Claude for 10 minutes knows that this is a very real danger with AI.
Like everyone being on drugs or something.
Yeah, it's I liken it to, like the future's not gonna be 1984. That was a technological advancement, surveillance tech, that ruined humanity, was a trap. Also, Brave New World, a drug that lists everybody out and nobody's making any progress. Like humanity, it's a trap for humanity. It's a technological advancement that stalled humanity's growth. In this case, medicine, a drug that lists everybody out. AI is a similar technology that comes with it a trap that we could potentially fall into. Although that's a pretty easygoing trap. Like they were all happy, at least. We're just not doing anything.
Yeah, and you know the copy paste monkey I think is a dangerous thing to be lulled into, and you know most people are not aware of the changes of AI in the last 4 months. That they're going to be just that's how they think to know to use it is just keep talking to it, and then it's going to give you bubbles for choices and just keep you docile. Anybody else?
There was this thing of Nigerian princesses and all this kind of stuff sending, and it had atrocious grammar and stuff like that, and I always wondered, well, who'd be fooled by this? And then I read something that they intentionally do that to find the easy marks, you know. And I'm wondering, my feeling when I look at some of this AI ChatGPT summaries, I've never actually gone on it myself. And I'm wondering how much of this is kind of scripted to look like it's intended not to worry you kind of thing. Yeah. Where is the level of it relative to what's presented?
Well, you know, you have the ability to add instructions to format it to, you know, your liking. But with the sycophancy that happened last year, like that could have very easily been a test where they knowingly did this and release it out in the wild in order to see how the public was going to react to it. So it's a problem, and you know, I'll wrap this up with personally, which you know, more AI I think is the only path forward, because I think the only way to get through the future is to have a personalized local Jarvis that has my back and my interests in mind, looking out for subtle manipulation happening around me as you know countries and large corporations work together to you know create models that are too expensive for the general public. And so I don't see another solution without you know mass destruction. Well, thank you guys. This was a very entertaining presentation together.